Welcome to Headphone News, Greater Toronto edition for Saturday, November 16th, 2024.
Canadian home sales rise in October 2024. In October 2024, home sales in Canada increased by 7.7% compared to September. There was a notable jump of 30% year-over-year from October last year. This surge follows interest rate cuts by the Bank of Canada, which have made it more affordable for buyers to purchase homes. The average selling price of homes rose by 6% compared to last year. However, the home price index experienced a slight decline of 0.1% this month and a 2.7% drop over the past year. These changes highlight how the Canadian real estate market is responding to the recent adjustments in interest rates.
Canada Post workers strike for better wages. On November 15, 2024, Canada Post workers began a strike, disrupting mail delivery across the country. The workers demand higher wages and better working conditions due to rising living costs. Mark, president of the Toronto Local Canadian Union of Postal Workers, highlighted that many employees struggle to get by on their current pay. Negotiations with Canada Post have been ongoing for over a year but remain unresolved. John, a spokesperson for Canada Post, noted that the company has faced significant financial losses. This situation reflects the broader challenges that workers in Canada are facing today.
Winnipeg Blue Bombers gear up for 111th Grey Cup. The 111th Grey Cup is happening on November 17, 2024, with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers taking on the Toronto Argonauts. Winnipeg comes into the game as the favorite, with a 9-point advantage. The Bombers aim to recover after losing in the championship match both in 2022 to Toronto and in 2023 to Montreal. Star running back Brady Oliveira will lead the team, while Toronto's quarterback Chad Kelly will miss the game due to an ankle injury, leaving backup Nick Arbuckle in charge. The Grey Cup is a significant event in Canadian culture and attracts a large audience every year. This year's game will be held at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton, Ontario.
Ontario proposes name change ban for sex offenders. The Ontario government in Canada plans to put new rules in place for registered sex offenders. These rules will stop offenders from legally changing their names as part of an effort to improve public safety, especially for children. The proposed legislation will also require sex offenders to provide their email addresses and social media account information, including any changes to their usernames. Additionally, there will be stricter travel requirements, mandating that offenders inform authorities about new passports or driver's licenses. These changes aim to help police better solve sex crimes and protect vulnerable communities, following the tragic murder of 11-year-old Christopher Stevenson by a sex offender in 1998.
Canadian home sales surge in October 2024. In October 2024, home sales in Canada jumped by 30% compared to the same month last year. The Canadian Real Estate Association, or CREA, reported strong activity nationwide, with significant increases in the Greater Toronto Area and British Columbia's Lower Mainland. The average home price reached $696,166 Canadian dollars, which is around $508,000 US. This boost in sales follows a period of slow activity and is partly driven by lower interest rates from the Bank of Canada. While new property listings saw a slight decline, the overall outlook for the housing market remains optimistic.
Man arrested for impaired driving in Barrie. A 35-year-old man was arrested in Barrie, Ontario, for allegedly driving a street sweeper while intoxicated. This incident occurred on Thursday evening when witnesses reported the street sweeper swerving into oncoming traffic. Police arrived at the scene around 7:15 p.m. after receiving these reports. The man faces charges of impaired driving and failing to comply with a breathalyzer test, resulting in a 90-day suspension of his driver's license. He was employed by a private street maintenance company in the Greater Toronto Area. Road safety remains a major concern in Ontario, with ongoing efforts to combat drunk driving.
Toronto approves new law to protect renters. The Toronto City Council has enacted a new law aimed at protecting renters from evictions under false renovation claims. The measure received support from 25 members of the council, with only one voting against it. Starting on July 31, 2025, landlords will need to obtain a renovation license that costs $700 approximately $515. The law requires landlords to prove that significant renovations necessitate tenant displacement. Furthermore, landlords must help displaced tenants find temporary housing at similar rental rates. They are also required to provide moving allowances and severance pay for tenants who decide not to return after renovations are completed. Mayor Chow supports this law, stating it is essential for protecting tenants from rising rents and unfair evictions. On the other hand, Count Holyday expressed opposition to the law, claiming it adds unnecessary burdens on landlords. This new regulation addresses ongoing housing challenges in Toronto.
Canada Post strike disrupts small businesses. On November 15, 2024, Canada Post workers launched a strike, impacting small businesses throughout Canada. Approximately 80% of these businesses rely on Canada Post for shipping and handling payments. In Oshawa, Ontario, business owner Sterling Slingerland had to stop online shipping, instructing local customers to pick up their orders instead. Many of his customers are from the United States, complicating delivery logistics. Other business owners, like Remy Vino in Moncton, New Brunswick, are facing challenges as alternatives for letter mail are limited. Many businesses are at risk of significant sales losses during the busy holiday season. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business has urged the government to intervene, seeking solutions through negotiations or arbitration. Meanwhile, Teamsters Canada has shown support for the striking postal workers, emphasizing solidarity among labor groups. This strike raises important concerns for small businesses during a crucial shopping period.
Accountability in Soleiman Faqiri's death. Soleiman Faqiri, a 30-year-old man, died in December 2016 at the Central East Correctional Centre in Lindsay, Ontario, Canada. A coroner's inquest later ruled his death a homicide. Faqiri suffered severe abuse while in custody, with medical reports revealing more than 50 bruises on his body. Evidence showed that guards struck him, used pepper spray, and restrained him with a spit hood. Faqiri had a diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder. He was arrested 11 days before his death, after allegedly stabbing a neighbor during a psychotic episode. Nearly 8 years later, his family remains frustrated with the Ontario government's lack of action regarding the inquest's recommendations to enhance protections for inmates with mental health issues.
Alberta Premier backs Ontario's trade proposal with Mexico. On November 15, 2024, Alberta Premier Smith supported Ontario Premier Ford's idea to explore removing Mexico from the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, known as USMCA. During an interview, Smith stated that Mexico is not a fair trade partner. Concerns have been raised regarding Mexico's ties to Chinese investments, viewed as a threat to jobs in both Canada and the United States. Ford mentioned that if Mexico fails to match tariffs on Chinese goods, it should lose its access to North America markets. This proposal could lead to major shifts in trade relations in the region.
Testimony in Abdelrazik's case raises human rights concerns. On November 15, 2024, former Canadian diplomat Scott Hetherington testified in court about the case of Abusfian Abdelrazik. Abdelrazik, a Canadian citizen originally from Sudan, was detained in Sudan in 2003 while visiting his mother. After spending 6 years in custody, he accused the Canadian government of arranging his detention and blocking his return to Canada. Hetherington conveyed uncertainty about whether the Canadian government requested his detention. Abdelrazik is suing the federal government for 27 million Canadian dollars, which is about $20 million US dollars, claiming violations of his rights. This case highlights significant issues regarding government accountability and individual rights, especially concerning national security. The implications extend beyond this specific case, raising concerns about possible government overreach under the guise of security.
Shooting incident in Scarborough leads to arrests. On November 15, 2024, Toronto police responded to a report about a concerning message that involved a firearm in Scarborough, Ontario. Officers attempted to stop a vehicle connected to this report, but the vehicle fled and later crashed. Upon arrival at the scene, officers found a man in his early 20s suffering from a gunshot wound. Two suspects, aged 17 and 19, were arrested at the site. The injured man received medical treatment for non-life-threatening injuries. Police recovered 2 firearms from the vehicle during the investigation. The Ontario Special Investigations Unit has been notified. This incident raises ongoing concerns about gun violence in urban areas.
Protest at Brampton Temple leads to police bodycam release. On November 3, 2024, a protest occurred outside the Hindu Sava Temple in Brampton, Ontario, Canada. Demonstrators gathered to express support for Khalistan, a proposed independent Sikh homeland. Tensions escalated during the protest, leading to confrontations between supporters of Khalistan and individuals displaying India's national flag. Peel police intervened and several arrests were made. On November 14, police released body camera footage showing an officer disarming a demonstrator during the incident. The footage aimed to clarify police actions and address community concerns about bias. The decision to release this footage was described as a rare move, intended to correct misinformation circulating on social media. This situation underscores ongoing tensions in the community and raises important questions about police conduct and public safety.
Toronto approves new bike lanes on Parkside Drive. On November 14, 2024, Toronto City Council voted 19-7 to support a new bike lane project on Parkside Drive. This plan aims to improve safety for cyclists by adding a 2-way bike lane while removing 1 car lane. The project will stretch for 1.9 kilometers and seeks to reduce accidents that have led to injuries and fatalities along this busy road. The estimated cost for the project is $7.5 million Canadian dollars, which is about $5.48 million US dollars. Concerns were raised about possible traffic congestion due to the reduction in car lanes. However, some council members argued that these bike lanes are essential for protecting cyclists and pedestrians. This decision comes amid new regulations from the provincial government that could affect bike lanes in the city.
Toronto Blue Jays hire David Bell as vice president. The Toronto Blue Jays have hired David Bell as the new vice president of baseball operations and assistant general manager. This announcement was made on November 15, 2024. Bell previously managed the Cincinnati Reds for 6 seasons. In his new role, he will oversee player development and work to enhance strategies for team performance. With a strong background in coaching and player development from his time with several Major League Baseball teams, Bell's hiring indicates the Blue Jays' commitment to improving competitiveness in the league.
That is all the news for today. Thank you for listening to today's Headphone News. News summary brought to you by AI.